Next question. Could you please talk about love bombing versus real intentions? Sure, I can do that. This is actually a question that I get pretty often, and I also feel like there's a lot of misconception when it comes to love bombing. What is love bombing? What isn't love bombing? But let me give you the general thoughts. And if you're not familiar with what love bombing is basically someone who expresses their desire to be with you, or tells you how much they love you, or expresses basically how ready they are to build a relationship with you, get married with you way too quickly, right? So like they're bombing you with love. So if you weren't already aware, this is what love bombing is. But what I feel like is a lot of people misunderstand when something is love bombing, or if it's coming from a real place, right? From real, genuine intentions. Now, I'm not saying that you should settle. Maybe I said too much. Let me just start from the beginning. So, if someone that you recently started dating, right? And when I say recently started dating, I mean like someone that you didn't know for the past 10 years. This is not someone that you've maybe been in a relationship with before, or someone that you've known for a very, very long time because you've been best friends, or you've been friends and you've known each other for a little while. For the most part, I'm talking about people that you just met on a dating app, you met at the gym the other day, you met at the grocery store, at a party, whatever. So like someone that you meet recently, and then you start dating them. So you either start texting them a little bit, you went on a couple of dates, right? And then all of a sudden, right, relatively early in that process, so I'm talking within maybe the first couple of weeks, or maybe within a month or so, maybe within like a month and a half, 2 months at this point, right? And they start expressing these very, very, deep feelings for you. They're telling you how much they love you. Maybe they even use the L word. They're telling you about the fact that they want to move in with you, that they want you to move in with them, that they want to, travel the world with you, that they want to have a family with you, that they want to start having kids with you, that they want to, all of these like very serious things that normally, right, take a little bit of time, right? So let me just start by saying that in order to build a healthy, long-term, committed relationship, the real, really the number one prerequisite to being able to do that is to really take the time to genuinely get to know one another. And it genuinely takes time, right? This whole Hollywood narrative that you can just lock eyes with someone and it's love at first sight. Hopefully you agree with me when I say this at this point, because you've watched my videos before and you just have a head on your shoulders. That's all BS, right? That's like a fantasy that they just want to sell you because it sells more movie tickets, it sells more flowers and chocolates on Valentine's Day and all of these things, and diamond rings and whatever that is, right? But the reality is that if you want to build a healthy relationship with someone, the number one prerequisite to being able to do that is to really just spend the time with each other, to get to know the ins and outs of each other, right? And it takes time. The reason why it takes time to get to know one another is because usually when we meet someone new, and that's especially true if we like them physically, we tend to put up a bit of a mask on. And as much as you're sitting there thinking, I never do that, yes, you do, right? Everyone does that. Every single person does that. It's called the honeymoon stage of dating. We tend to pretend that we are potentially like a better version of ourselves, right? We tend to just try to show and say the things that we kind of think that the other person wants to hear and see, right? Again, especially if we find the other person, to be physically attractive, we're going to do that even to a higher extent. So what does that mean for you, right? So like the reason why, again, it takes time to get to know one another, it's because it takes a little bit of time for that mask to drop, right? It takes a couple of months, right? So I would say maybe 2, 3, 4 months, depending on the frequency and the quality of your interactions. It would take a few months for that mask to really drop, to the point where we start saying the real things, to the point where we stop hiding our, frustrations or fears or, insecurities, or we start hiding certain things that bother us about the relationship or about the person specifically, right? We become a little bit more real with each other. Right? And that is true for any type of relationship, whether that's a friendship, whether that's like, a new colleague that you start working, at work. You just go like from day one and start like talking about the deepest fears and your life and your past, right? It takes a little bit of time till you come to a point where you trust them, till it comes to a point where you don't just answer the question like, how are you, with like, good, how are you, just automatically. It takes a little bit of time till you actually share, how you really feel. So the same applies, and even to a higher extent in romantic situations, because we're all afraid to get hurt. We all are afraid to, just like overstep, and rush things. So we tend to be very careful, and we tread, carefully at these early stages. So if someone expresses how much they're already 100% sure about you, and you're like, whoa, like you haven't even taken the time to really get to know me, it usually comes from two places. All right. So the first place I'm going to talk about is the minority. It's something that happens very, very rarely, right? But what most people believe to be the main reason why. And this is why it's interesting to me. This is why I chose this question, right? Most people believe that if someone, right, and most people that say that it's because they had, bad past experiences and they're just projecting. Most of the stuff that you see online to answer this question, oh, if a guy tells you all of these things, he's using you. Okay, so the minority, right, of the situation, right, because there are some people out there, both men and women, who are just not good people. And they are trying to take advantage of us in some way. And they are trying to manipulate us, right, to get us on their side so they can get whatever they want out of us, right? And therefore, they're going to try to apply this tactic. They're going to try to love bomb us. They're going to say and do the things that they believe we want to hear and see in order to open up to them so they can take whatever they want out of us. And that thing could be many things. That could be sleeping with you. That could be maybe getting money out of you because they believe that they can borrow money, take money, right? Or they believe that you can, I don't know, maybe just give them the validation that they're looking for, right? They want to just say, you know what, I got it. I was able to get that person, right? So whatever that reason is, right? It's not only one reason. Whether that's money, whether that's sleeping with you, whether that's other reasons, right? They're going to try to do and say all of these things that they believe we want to hear as quickly as possible so they can get whatever they want out of us as quickly as possible. And that could happen sometimes, right? But that's not the majority. The majority of people, right? The majority of people that we're going to meet out there are good people, right? Are people like you and me, people who are out there trying to build a life, trying to, build relationships, that are just trying to be happy, right? And a lot of people out there are going to think that they feel all of these things too quickly because usually, they're desperate to have these things. So, for example, if you're someone that's been, like that came out of a long-term relationship, and this is something I deal with a lot of my clients, so I see that firsthand, right? If you're someone who hasn't been dating very much recently, right? Because maybe you're not meeting a lot of people. You're too afraid of maybe online dating, and you work from home and you don't meet a lot of people, right? Maybe you tried online dating once or twice and then you just got afraid of it and don't want to do it anymore. Maybe you're someone who's been, after a long-term relationship, you've been married before, or you just came out of a long-term relationship and you've taken your time. You said to yourself, I'm going to take time to heal, and you've taken a little bit longer than you should have. And now you're just completely terrified to put yourself out there. And then it happens so that you just meet someone. You meet someone at the grocery store, you meet someone at the gym, or you meet this new guy at work, right? And again, this applies for both men and women exactly the same way, but you want to feel those feelings. You want that shortcut. You don't want to go through the entire process of dating each other. You want to feel all of these feelings, and therefore you are tricking yourself into thinking that you really feel those things, right? If you're desperate to be in a relationship, you're going to feel that you love the other person way more quickly. If you're desperate to, not be alone and not spend your weekends alone anymore, you're going to feel desperate, right? And you're going to try to expedite the process. You're going to say to yourself, oh, why even date? Why take the process? Let's just move in together, because you're so desperate to be with someone. You're so desperate to live with someone. You're so desperate to not be alone. You're so afraid to be alone, right? So you're trying to expedite the process. Now, the question was, could you please talk about love bombing versus real intentions? These are real intentions. This is a real human being who's not trying to manipulate you, who's not trying to quote unquote, love bomb you. However, right, and these intentions are real. That's how they really feel. That's how they think they feel anyway. They think that they love you. They think that that they're ready to move in with you, that they're ready to get married with you, that they're ready to do all of these things with you. And this is usually the majority of the situations happen, in that category, right? It's not because they're just horrible people. They're just trying to manipulate us and trick us into getting something out of us, right? But in either of these situations, this is where the video gets important, right? In either of these situations, right? Because it doesn't really matter whether it's one or the other. Either way, it's a red flag. Either way, you should proceed with caution. Either way, you shouldn't take that as, a sign that they're ready, that it was like meant to be, and jump right into it and say to yourself, well, they're sure, I should be sure as well. You know what I mean? Like, they convinced me that we should be getting married really quickly, or we should be thinking about having kids together and all of those things, and we should move in together after a month of knowing each other, right? Whether it's coming from a place of they're trying to use you, or it's coming from a place that they just lack the self-esteem, lack the confidence, or they're just desperate to be in a relationship, either way, right? This is not a good situation to be in for you. Either way, you should really look at it for the red flag that it truly is, right? Because it takes time to get to know one another. It takes time to make these decisions, right? And it should take them time, just like it should take you time to really decide whether or not they are the person for you, whether or not there is compatibility, right? Whether or not we have similar values, similar beliefs, whether or not we have similar goals, right? Whether or not the attraction is really there. Is it just like the honeymoon stage that we're just, so excited to meet someone new that we're like, oh my God, infatuated with them? Or is it real attraction, both on the physical level, on the emotional level, right? It takes time to figure that out. It takes a few months of constant, of consistent, of regular, frequent, in-person, right? In-person interaction. So I should be going on at least, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 dates with that person before I, make the decision that, hey, you know what? I feel like I'm ready to talk about things like relationships, that I think that I've gotten to know them a little bit to figure out whether or not maybe I want to take the next step in my relationship. As a general rule of thumb, right? Because a lot of you are asking me like, what's a good amount of time? It really depends, again, on the quality as well as the quantity of your interactions, in-person interactions. But if you want like a rule of thumb, right? For the most part, it should take about 6 to 8 weeks, so a couple of months. If 6 to 8 weeks would translate to about 6 to 8 physical in-person dates, by the way. Not just 6 to 8 weeks since you guys connected on a dating app and saw each other twice, right? So 6 to 8 weeks of consistent in-person interactions, at least, right? This is like probably be on the lower end for me. Until you start making decisions like, hey, you know what? I want to talk about exclusivity. I want to talk about commitment. I want to talk about a relationship. And then it should take about 6 to 8 months of, again, consistent in-person interactions, at least on a weekly basis, of you start talking about things like, moving in together or marriage or like, these long-term, life decisions together. So just as a rule of thumb. But again, whether or not it's coming from a play or a malicious place, right? Which again, most of the time it doesn't, right? Most of the time it does not come from a malicious place. Most of the time, if somebody is love bombing you, they're not coming from a bad place. They're not trying to purposely manipulate you. They're just, right? And this is something that unfortunately or fortunately, that's just the way it is. Like people live with, these days, that they're either too afraid to put themselves out there or they don't know how to. And this is really how I come in. This is why I do what I do. They don't know how to put themselves out there. They don't know how to use online dating. They don't know how to use people offline in real life, right? So they tend to not do that. And then they close themselves off. So the moment that something out of nowhere just pops up and there's an opportunity, they want to go all in as quickly as possible. They want to capitalize on that opportunity because deep down they know that if it doesn't work with this person, like I haven't met anyone in the past 4 years up until leading to that, right? Or I haven't met anyone I wanted to explore a relationship with in the past whatever amount of time, right? Because they just don't meet enough people, they don't date enough people, right? So they're just trying to like dive in head first and they expedite the process and they're literally tricking their own brain into thinking that they feel all of these, feelings. But again, a lot of these feelings, right? They're just like your hormones acting up. So if you haven't had something for a long time and you really want it, right, your brain is going to fire up all of these hormones that are going to tell you, oh my God, I'm in love. Oh my God, I really want to be with this person. I just know that this is my person. None of this is real. None of this is true, right? So it takes time. It really does take time to get to know each other. It really takes time and a common and joint effort, right, of you coming together and spending time around each other, getting to know each other. And it should be at a slower pace, right? Because we can't really rush these things. And if we try to rush these things, usually they don't last very long. So take your time. And like I said, just because someone is expressing these things, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not real intentions. They could be real intentions, but they still should be a red flag to you. And you should still deal with that situation the same way. You should still take a step back. You should explain that you need to take your time, that you're not ready for certain things, right? And allow them, right, through time, right, to really show you who they are and make sure that you want to be with them, right? So even though someone expresses their certainty and their desire to already be with you, you should be asking yourself before that, do I even want to be with them first, right? Don't just take that as a compliment and be like, oh, if they're sure about me, then I should be sure about them, right? Really make sure that you take the time that you need, right, to make sure that they align with the type of person that you want to add to your life, right? Before you make a decision to do that. So hopefully that question kind of clarifies it for you. I feel like a lot of people really go wrong with it. And they just tend to just like dive in, head first just because someone expressed an interest in them. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. I'm going to answer some more questions in my future videos. So if you're not signed up to this channel, if you're not subscribed, subscribe right now, and stay tuned because I'm going to be posting a few more answers to these questions that I got on Instagram very shortly on this channel. I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.